A very good evening to you and welcome to All Angles. My name is Andrea Chisholm and I'm filling in for Dion. Now, for the first half of the program, we're going to be talking about some of the key findings and recommendations of the Auditor General's report. And it speaks about the procurement practices of the University Hospital of the West Indies. And later in the program, for the second half of the show, we're going to talk about the controversial enhanced games. It allows athletes to use performance-enhancing drugs. But we're going to start off with the Auditor General's report. And on Tuesday, the University Hospital of the West Indies, that information was made public. So we're going to be jumping right in. We don't have time to go through every single details, but we're going to be picking out some of the highlights. My guests this evening are Dr. Gavin Mars, the new Principal Director of the National Integrity Action NIA, and the Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, JAMP, Jeanette Calder. Good evening.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us. Well, the audit focused on the University Hospital of the West Indies, as we all know, and it covered the period from the start of the fiscal year in 2019 to the end of the fiscal year in March 2025. So let's pull out one of the key findings. The Auditor General found that 51 contracts valuing $521 million that the University Hospital could not provide any procurement documentation. Let's start with you, Ms. Calder. Why is that problematic?
First and foremost, it's a breach of a law. Those laws have been put in place by our parliamentarians, our elected representatives, for the very purpose of recognizing and acknowledging the sacrifice that Jamaicans make in paying taxes so that we can what? Have good public services and better quality of life. So when you have public officials who you have entrusted and they are abusing the authority that they have, but also the opportunity to spend in a way that can benefit you, and they do it with a disregard for the laws that are there to actually protect your assets and to help you to deliver the best services possible, then there's just a lot of concerns. There's a breakdown of trust. And the bottom line is it just affects the quality of our lives. And Andrea, let me be clear. We've talked about this from time to time. This kind of discussion is not new for me, but it is really particularly hurtful. And I had a difficult day reading the report, particularly because it was the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So when we have these kind of reports coming in about any entity, it's bad. But when it is about a ministry or an entity rather that is taking care of the most vulnerable, then it becomes a little bit more heartbreaking. It's more than just the money.
Okay. Mr. Myers, you have some people who may think that the procurement rules are neither here nor there. So in the context of this major finding from the Auditor General, I'll put this same question to you. Why is it a problem?
You know, the first time I started working for the government, I was told to make sure you take care of people and money.
Yeah.
You were told from earlier that my permanent secretary, I remember, said that she's afraid to wear short pants. There was this understanding from man that is people money. Yeah. The University Hospital serves people. Think about upon Mavis Bank, those people who work way up in the hills, who plant coffee or whatever it is, and to know that there was someone or there has been an entity for 6 years flaunting rules that would make them, if they were caught, go to jail. If someone flaunts the resources that you don't have, and it is in healthcare, something that is clear for us. So think about Mavis Bank, think about Augustown, think about any community. This hospital serves them, and to know that the resources that should serve them has been misappropriated, mishandled, and the structures and systems that have been put in place that we know as Jamaicans are there as checks and balances have been flaunted, it hurt, personally hurt.
Let's move on to one of the other key findings. The report also spoke about the fact that the UHWI frequently started the procurement process. So they began the procurement process after the goods and the services were already delivered. And we have some graphics to put this in greater context. So they bought things like 41 laptops, renovated the staff clinic, occupational building, doctor's quarters, and daycare nursery, painting works and Wi-Fi building renovation, and all of that totaled $69.2 million. Dr. Miles, let me just throw that one over
Friend
to
and
you.
company. It sounds like friend and company sound like connected. It sounds like there were decisions being made through things that we have no understanding of. The procurement rules does speak about how do you procure things.
And 1 second, let me just lose the graphic on the screen at this moment so that we can hear what Dr. Miles is saying, because that is another issue that we're going to be moving on to. So yes, back to you, Dr. Miles.
So it's this understanding that friend and company should not be involved. There's some form of arm's length. The procurement rules are there. We have been trained, and even at my low level when I worked in government, we understood about procurement. We knew that before we procured, you did the systematic approach to this. So understanding now that there are persons who made rules in some way that to ensure that things happen. So there's the timeliness of procurement that is not happening. They ensure that there's probity, that there's value for money. These things, we just don't know what happens. And not knowing makes us wary. At the very least, not knowing, it should make us uncomfortable.
Have you ever seen this before?
I'm so glad you asked me that, I'm sure, because let me tell you guys, I've been paying attention to procurement for a long time. While I was in government, just procuring myself as the director of the Technical Services Unit at the Ministry of Housing, serving on the National Contracts Committee, where part of my responsibility was to ensure that the process of procurement went well. I have been reading Auditor General's reports, Contractor General reports, and this one is new. And why is it new? I mean, I thought I've seen it all, but just think about it in Jamaica. It's not just a matter of the procurement rules. It's a level of deceit that is bothersome. You have already procured the 41 laptops. You've gotten them. It's been supplied. And then you take the time after that to begin to send out invitations to bid to the person who has already delivered them and to other bidders. It's an act of pretense, and it is deceit. And that I have never come across before.
So it's like a situation, just to break it down. For example, I buy a fridge in my house, for example, and it's after I buy that, I'm going to get the invoice and the quotation.
And you're asking people, supply me with a fridge, please, but the fridge is there. And then you're putting documentation together, and contracts are being post-dated to give the appearance that it had been done correctly, which means you really know how to do it, Andrea. I've never seen that before. It's deliberate, it is premeditated, and it is deceitful.
So let me stay with you, Ms. Calder. So the Auditor General's report by itself on the UHWI is damning. But when taken in the context of the tardiness in financial reporting by the Health Ministry, for example, how is the issue magnified?
Definitely. I mean, JAMP has reported almost a year ago about our concerns that we read about 11 Auditor General's reports looking at the various ministries who have been tardy in providing financial reports. And the Ministry of Health was one such. It was last $829 billion. The annual report was tabled yesterday, so we'll be able to check to see if it has increased. But that's almost $1 trillion, and we're looking at almost, 10, 11 years? So I'm just asking the Jamaican people to recognize what is happening. If you have given a ministry $829 billion, and you have no idea how it has been spent. There's a budget, which is a law. By the way, Andrea, I never known the budget was a law until a couple years ago, okay? So it's legislation. Yes, it's legislation. It's not just a budget. Parliament passed a law. And we have no idea whether you have adhered to anything in that for the last 10 years. We have no clue whether or not money have, been misappropriated. We just don't know, because the financial reports are the fundamental safeguard to protect the people's funds and assets. So if the ministry for so long hasn't been providing them, it means an Auditor General cannot double check. And do you notice now that she's double checking what she's finding? So guys, let's be honest here. If it's human nature, if I know, Doc, that you're not gonna come and check, what do you think is gonna happen to the people who are monitoring our money? It's gonna be difficult. So it's extremely important that we begin to get those reports in.
All right, let's leave it there for a moment. We're going to take our first break here on All Angles, and we'll be right back with more right after this.